Hi everyone, if you are a fresher and want to crack the Java interview, then you are at the right place. In this we are going to cover top 10 most frequently asked Java interview questions along with the best optimized answers. So if you cover all these questions along with the answers, then there are high chances of getting selected in the Java interviews. Now let us see what is the first important question that we need to cover. And that is, what is the difference between JVM, JRE and JDK? And to give the best and optimized answer to this question, we need to tell them that the JDK lets us develop Java application, whereas JRE provides the environment to run them, and the JVM executes the bytecode. So this is the sequence we need to understand in mind. At JDK level, it will help us to develop our application. It will compile it so that it will generate the class file, and the class file will contain the bytecode. JRE provides the environment with which we can run our application or bytecode, and JVM will actually execute the bytecode. So this is the in sequence you need to understand in mind. So this is the exact what each one is doing. Next question, which is getting repeated very open, that is Java passed by value or passed by reference? So this is a bit tricky question. As an answer, you can tell them Java is always passed by value, but when passing object, the value that is passed is a reference to the object, not the actual object. To understand this, we need to understand with some example. Now let us understand it with some example. So here this is the integer a variable which has some value as a 5, and here this is the modify method wherein we are trying to modify the value of this a. Now here we are passing it as a value, and here we have modified the value, but as we are passing it as a value, that's why what change we make it here will not have any impact on the initial value of a. That's why whenever we print, it will print the original value and not the modified value. So you can see it is printing 5. Similar way, in case of objects, like we have dog which has a name as a property or field. So here initially we can set the body and we can pass the dog object as a reference. In Java we are not passing object, so rather we are passing as a reference. So that's why whenever we change the name it here, that will get reflected, but the moment it is pointing to the new object, this reference, and set some new name, it has no impact on the initial value set it here. So till it here it will reflect because this is the reference which is pointing to the original object. That's why it can change the property, but it will not change the object altogether itself. That's why till this point it will get reflected, and finally it will show the Fido as a dog's name. Next important question is, what are the 4 pillars of OOP? OOP stands for Object Oriented Principles, and what are those? Those are encapsulation, abstraction, inheritance and polymorphism. Let us see each one in detail. Encapsulation basically protects the data. It is the process of bundling fields and methods that operate on them into a single class. It will basically restrict the direct access. In short, like, it will encapsulate what all fields and data methods are there inside a class just to protect the data. Abstraction, we can use it to hide complexity and show only essential. The basis of abstraction is to hide the internal implementation of details. Inheritance, we can use it to reuse and extend existing code. It will basically inherit properties and behavior from the another class. Basically, inside parent class we have some properties and behavior that can be extended by the subclasses. That is what we call it as it is inheritance. Polymorphism, it has same interface and different behavior, like same method name can have different implementations depending on the object type. So these are the 4 important object oriented principles you should keep in mind. So the next important question is overloading versus overriding. So overloading basically is when multiple methods have same name but different parameters within the same class. So let us understand it with some example. So this is the add method which has 2 integer parameters. We have another add method with two double parameters, and we call it as a overloaded, because for overloading we need to have same method name and different parameters which must be different in number, type or order. So here we have add method with two integer parameters, and here we have same add method with two double parameters. So parameters are different as in type. So that way the parameters should be different in type, order or number to overload the method. But we need to keep in mind that method name must be same. What is the overriding? Overriding is when a subclass provides a new implementation of a method that is already defined in its superclass. So let us understand it. So this is the animal class, which has one general method speak for animal speaks, and this is the dog method which is extending the animal behavior, and here we are implementing the speak method specific to the dog. Now we have a specific dog method, accordingly we need to implement this speak method. So this is the parent method which has some generic behavior, and we have given the specific implementation related to the dog at here. This is, we call it as overriding, like we are providing new implementation for the generic implementation of the parent class inside the subclass. Next important question is, what is an interface or abstract class in Java? So interface basically it defines a contract that may include abstract methods, default methods, static methods and constants. So let us understand it with some example. So this is the animal interface which has some abstract methods like abstract method 1, and this is the abstract method 2. So from Java 9 onwards, like interface, in interface we can add private methods which are used by default or static methods. So it's an addition from Java 9 onwards. Inside interface we can basically define the contracts which are only the declaration of the methods, and inside our class which is going to implement this interface, inside that we are going to implement these contracts. What is the abstract class? Abstract class provides a partial implementation that other classes can extend. So this is an example of abstract class wherein we have partial implementation. This is the abstract method, and this method must be implemented by the subclasses. So inside abstract class we can have partial implementation as well as full implementation. So you can see this is the abstract method, whereas this is the concrete method. So this kind of mixture we can keep inside the abstract class. But the basis of abstract class, we can define one abstract method that can be implemented by the subclasses. Next important question is, why is string immutable? Or they can ask you the other way, like whether the string is mutable or immutable. As an answer, you can tell them strings are immutable in Java to ensure the security, thread safety and efficient memory and performance management. In general, like strings are getting widely used in Java in every aspect or every part of the Java, like it is getting used in file paths, networking, hash code caching, thread safety and class loading and interning, and there are many other areas like collection and all wherein string is getting heavily used, and that is the reason it is immutable, because if strings were mutable, malicious code could alter values after validation, creating security or vulnerabilities. So that is the risk, that is why strings are immutable in Java. Next important question which is getting asked very open in interviews, that is the difference between double equal to and equals. So double equal to basically compares the references, whereas equals compare the content. So let us understand with some example. So here this is the same reference, it is for A which is inside double quote, that is why it is printing true. Whereas here in this case the first new string A will create a new object, and this is the A literal, this object is created inside heap which is altogether different, and that is these two references are different, that is why it is giving the false. Whereas equals will only compare the content, that is why it is giving the true. It will not look for the references, it will simply compare the content. So that is the basic difference in between the double equal to and the equals method. Next important question which is getting asked very open, that is what is the difference between array and array list. Array is a fixed size and it can store primitive values only. As an example, you can see this is an integer array wherein it has fixed value which is a 4, and this is how we can assign the value to the arrays. And array index starts with the 0 and incremented by 1 every time we use the next array index. So this is about the array. Array list, like it's a resizable and it will store the objects. As an example, we can see this is the array list of string object we can create, and here how we can use the add and remove methods of array, we can use it. Like this is the string object, whereas you can use any custom object for creating the array list as well. So basically we can use the array when the size is fixed and performance matters, whereas we can use the array list when the size is dynamic and we need flexible operations like add and remove. Next important question is what is the difference between checked and unchecked exceptions. So checked exceptions wherein compiler forces you to handle it, for example IO exception, and unchecked exception, these are runtime errors like null pointer exceptions. So checked exceptions are checked at compile time and must be either handled or declared using throws, whereas unchecked exceptions occur at runtime and do not require explicit handling. And the last and most important question that is getting asked very open in interview, that is what is the difference between stack and heap. So stack is used for method execution and it will store the primitive values and the references, whereas heap is used for storing object and their instance variables. Stack is basically fast, small and thread safe, while the heap is larger, shared and used for dynamic memory allocation. Stack is automatic and heap is cleaned by the garbage collector. These are the basic differences you need to keep in mind for stack versus heap. With this, we have covered the top 10 most frequently asked Java interview questions along with the best optimized answers. I hope you must have enjoyed this, and please do not forget to like, subscribe and share. Thank you so much for watching this.